Hello, I'm Dana Cowley. Welcome to Charter Local Edition Northwest in Salem, Oregon. My guest today is Oregon State Representative John Huffman. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Dana.
You have become the go-to guy about drone legislation, of all things to become known for. How did that come to be?
Yeah, of all things. Well, I'm going to tell you a little known fact about legislators and how we come up with policy concepts to bring to the legislature to try to get made into law.
I am listening.
This actually came, I don't know if you ever watched the drama Harry's Law.
I did.
With Kathy Bates.
Mm.
Well, I happened to see a feature probably late in 2011, and it was about a drone that was hovering over a neighbor's backyard, and it appeared to be peering in a window.
Oh.
And surveilling the neighbor. And so she came over knocking on Kathy's door, and Kathy was a lawyer and named Harry. And so anyway, to make a long story short, I got to thinking about that, and I thought, boy, you know, drones are really becoming prevalent. Everywhere we go, a lot of uses for them.
Every news organization has one.
They do. The media's really picked up on it. Agriculture's picked up on it. Law enforcement, of course, for search and rescue and everything else. And so keep in mind, this was 5 years ago. Little did I know that with that TV show idea that I would form a work group in 2012 and start researching with industry leaders like In Situ and other drone manufacturers. Law enforcement are at the table. So I created this permanent work group of a lot of stakeholders, and it became a permanent work group. We have the work group going today. Out of the original concept, we passed House Bill 2710 in the 2013 session, and we've got a bill in the works this session. I have a hearing on it Monday in Senate Judiciary. One, it requires all public entities. In House Bill 2710, it was only law enforcement, but state agencies, in addition to law enforcement, would have to create a policy around how they would use drones and make that available to the public. Also, we create a penalty for improper use of a drone. For example, you know, in the media we heard a lot the last two fire seasons that drones were involved in obstructing firefighting. Tankers were grounded and they weren't able to spray retardant because drones were in the vicinity. So the bill creates a penalty for that. And then critical facilities, you know, some of them are federal installations, and they already have rules around flyovers and whatnot, but we've added to that for chemical plants, you know, dams, electrical generation plants, of course nuclear plants and whatnot. And so there would be a penalty for flying over those facilities.
And then how do you interface with the federal government? Because federal regulation and federal airspace has got to blend with what the state wants too.
Exactly. Well, one of the things that House Bill 2710 did was create statewide preemption. So local counties, local governments can't create any laws around drones. It has to come to the legislature. And so we're the same way with the FAA. There's federal preemption, and so we are subordinate to any rules that the FAA comes up with.
Okay.
The FAA has taken plenty of time to try to come up with solutions around all of these drones that are now being flown. And so we have decided at the state level, with the help of Oregon Aviation Department, to move forward with what we think are good policies for Oregon. And then if the FAA eventually catches up and they decide to pass something, it would preempt the state law. And we're subordinate to that, and we understand that. But we think it's a good idea because we're a little quicker in our policy movements than they have been. They have come out with a position paper of what they plan to do with registrations and whatnot. And I think they're moving in a good direction. They're just going a little slow.
Well, very often good legislation comes out of states and then the federal government will follow, and sometimes those things line up and sometimes not, but it's often good to have the state out in front of those things.
True. I believe we know what's best for Oregon.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dana.
And we thank you for watching. This is Charter Local Edition Northwest in Salem, Oregon.